So yeah, Sunil. So I start with myself. So I started my actuarial journey way back in 2014
Okay.
and cleared around nine papers in
Okay.
2016. Yeah, in 3 years, and then started in 2012. In 16, in 4 years, I cleared nine papers. Then I got my first job in 2014. So from last 10 years, I was within the industry, Indian industry. GI. So I have worked with the Universal Sompo, Manipal Signa, and then
Okay.
lastly Tata AIG. My
So direct
experience,
insurance. Okay. Direct
direct
insurance.
insurance. Yeah. So prior to this, my experience have been mix of actuarial plus analytics because
Okay.
in between for 3 4 years I was doing analytics, data engineering, and
Got it.
everything.
Got
Took
it.
a
Got
break,
it.
took a break from work, did a full time SPGen course from SPGen, and then
Mm-hmm.
again came back to the industry. Recently, I've been working with XIXL in Gurgaon. I
Okay.
switched from Mumbai to Delhi.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So here
Got it.
also it's been 3 4
Got it.
months. I'm
So
working in
prior
the
direct
PNC only.
insurance. Direct
Yeah,
insurance. Hmm.
correct. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Fine. Fine. Someone else can just go like 30 seconds. That would be helpful because that helps me understand direct insurance versus reinsurance versus consulting versus whatever. So that kind of helps me set the tone as well. Now,
So,
who else is here? I think Raghav. Yeah, Raghav, you can just go on. I think you're on mute. No, I think you're still on mute. Maybe we'll circle back. Maybe Ishan, you can just go ahead. 30 seconds.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah. That's fine,
Okay,
Raghav.
so
Whenever you can unmute, it's fine. Yeah, go
so
ahead. Go ahead.
yes. So I'm Ishan. I work in consulting currently.
Okay.
I am based in Canada.
Okay.
I am originally a life actuary. So I've
Okay.
qualified in 2018
Okay.
and I have worked with Swiss Re, Exide, companies like that.
Okay.
Our firm also provides PNC services. So this is
Okay.
me just upskilling and
Yeah,
learning.
got it. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it. Got it. Got it. Okay. And you're focusing on SP7 and SP8 or just SP7 for the time being?
Just SP7 for the time being.
Okay. Okay. Got it. Got it. Anyone else? I think 1 minute. Just one more person. Anisa.
hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, you're on. Yeah.
Yeah, so my name's Anissa. I'm based in London. I
Okay.
work at AIG.
Okay. AIG London. Direct or reinsurance or syndicate?
Yes,
I'm sorry,
uh,
your voice cut off.
direct insurance.
Direct. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're a licensed carrier. Okay. Got it. Got it.
So for the past 3 years, I've been working in pricing.
Okay. So you're primarily in pricing, you're coming into reserving. Got it.
Mhm. Yeah.
Got it. All right. Raghav, if you can just share 30 seconds, that would be helpful. Oh, okay. You're working with MetLife, life domain. Okay. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay. So I think this is very different from okay. So this is a very different cohort from what we usually get because primarily most of our cohorts that I've uh, met till now have been in primarily in GI. I've never had life actuaries come. So this is very different altogether. So I think it makes it a little more interesting. It makes it a lot more fun as well. So I think uh, I've had the pleasure of working with a couple of life actuaries. They're more so I think that's a very interesting switch as well. So welcome to the GI world, I suppose. So I hope my classes give you the required depth to understand the market. So I think market understanding is also very important when you make that switch from life to GI because it's a very different universe according to me, right? Life and GI are miles apart, poles apart, universes apart. So it's interesting. But yeah, all right. So let me just share one of my PPTs, and then I will tell you how I plan on structuring the course so that it's easier. So just hold on there. Yes. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So effectively, when you look at, so this might not apply to Ishan because he's done it, but if you look at, generally, if you look at an SP level paper, right, it's slightly different from your CP, CB, and CS level papers, or if you're from the older generation like me, the CT level papers that you would have given, right? So effectively speaking, there is a requirement of specialization that is required, which is different from your other core level papers where you were tested on the basics of the theories that you were studying, right? So this one is a little different where you have to go deep into the specific items that are being asked. And effectively speaking, this kind of creates, creates an added dynamic into your exam that is different from what you would have primarily done with, right? So that is something which you have to deal with when you come here, because your answers and your structure in which you're creating your answers and your exam technique needs to change directly to apply this level of specialization that is required for you to clear it, right? So till now you would have written answers in one particular format, but going forward, you'll have to change how you structure your answers so that you go a little more depth first into the answers, a little more, a little more industry insights that needs to be added into your answers, because most of the questions that are being asked are no longer going to be objective. You're going to get a certain level of subjectivity in your questions, right? Which is my third point, and I'll come to that. I'll come to the complexity part later, but yes, basically the questions now are going to morph from basic questions or any application level questions that you would have applied. So for example, let's take the old CT6 paper, right, where the question would have been around credibility theory, right, where they would have asked you to apply credibility theory and arrive at a risk premium or something like that. So the question would have required you to just calculate and then just give you the right answers. But here, there is a level of subjectivity that comes in where you have to apply your judgment. You have to apply potential appointed actuary judgment or chief actuary judgment into answering a question which requires slight amount of higher order skills, right? So that is where your skills as an actuary will be tested. So in SP7, it could be an opinion on reserves that you create. So it's not required that you have to create a full-fledged opinion, but yes, you have to show directionality in your opinions, right? Where you answer a subjective question and make it relevant to the examiner who's correcting your paper. The third point, obviously, is all this combined brings a level of complexity to the papers, which you would have not faced before. So that's something that you'll have to deal with. And the best way, to go around this is practice and exam technique. So throughout the course, throughout in my videos, I would have explained not only the material, but I would also explain exam technique that would be required for you to kind of face the exams and face the complexity and subjectivity issues correctly, right? So where possible, I give you a track of how to apply exam technique correctly and how do you hone your exam technique in such a way that your answers are better. So you have to understand a simple thing over here, that you might know everything, you might be theoretically very sound, but if your exam technique is poor, then that's a very big problem, right? If your exam technique is great, but you don't know the theory, that might create problems where you don't, your technique might be on point, but your theory is not there. So you end up not doing well. So you need to marry uh, theoretical knowledge and exam technique to basically crack this paper, right? So which brings me to my final point: marking from a core level paper and marking in a specialist level paper, very, very different. You get more subjectivity in marking, and I'm pretty sure if if you go to any of the old acted forums for the old timers, and for the newer generation, if you go to any Reddit forum that's there, maybe the Actuary UK forum or something like that, you will hear a lot of stories on how marking is very different. And like, if you see that in the core papers, you will see it in your SP level papers to a greater extent as well, right? So I'll give you a simple tidbit of mine. When I cleared SP7, marker 1 had given me 76, marker 2 had given me 42, and marker 3 had given me 72. So there is a huge amount of deviation, and that's primarily because of the complexity and subjectivity point that we discussed. No two actuaries see the same problem in the same way. So your marking is completely, subjective at that point. So that creates another layer of complexity that you need to solve. And in many cases, it gets solved by your exam technique, right? So throughout the course, you will hear me talk about a lot of these points and give you points or tidbits or points of experience which I have faced, which can potentially help you, which can hopefully help you, right? So that's my this thing. And if anyone has a question, please feel free to cut me off and just ask. I would like that you guys cut me and ask me as much as possible. I feel that that's healthier, creates a healthier this thing than having like a one-way conversation where I tell and you listen. Better that, it becomes a discussion, and please feel free to question me wherever you feel off. Is that clear?
Sure, sure.
Okay, perfect. All right. So basically, if you look at what subject SP7 is, what you're going to study, you're effectively going to study three major things and a couple of minor things, right? The biggest aspect of SP7 is loss reserving, where you basically apply mathematical techniques to identify the expected loss cost of an insurance company's liabilities, right? So effectively, there are chapters dedicated to what are the techniques. So you start off with simple techniques like expected loss ratio methods, then move to more complex techniques, basic chain ladder, then Bonnet-Ferguson, and then move to fairly more complex techniques, which are stochastic approaches to loss reserving. So that's the entire aspect. The second biggest aspect that you will study is capital modeling. And back in, let's say, 2015, at least in the UK, capital modeling used to be a huge area of interest and huge area of discussion, primarily because UK and much of the Western world was moving to Solvency 2 from Solvency 1. Right. So Solvency 2 was a capital model, and that's when the syllabus also started strengthening around capital modeling. For the India aspect, Solvency 2/RBC, which is risk-based capital, is becoming very important now. So if you are in the Indian context, and if you are applying for the India paper, there is a very high chance that you are going to get capital modeling questions, because the Indian regulator has also started doing quantitative impact studies, right? Which is creating simple capital. So they started off with QIS1, which was a simple capital model, which created, capital requirements for all insurers, which all insurers failed. So this is history, right? So
Yeah.
all insurers failed their initial capital model. It showed like a huge capital requirement that was put in the industry, which then got converted to QIS2, where a lot of insurers, as per my knowledge, have actually failed those tests again. Right. So there is a lot of debate going on in the Indian insurance industry as to whether or not you want to have these kind of capital models or these calibrated capital models, which are applicable, which are already live in production in, let's say, the UK, in Singapore, in Hong Kong. Do you want to have those same capital factors? Those are all the questions that are currently being asked. So capital modeling in SP7 gives you a good introduction or a solid introduction to how capital models are created, how capital models influence the capital that is required, and what are the downstream impact of capital modeling into all the other functions of an insurance company, right? So whether it is what is the impact of capital modeling on pricing, what is the impact of capital modeling on reserving, on reinsurance strategy. So those are the things that get covered under this thing. And one aspect of capital modeling that gets covered as well is the impact or quantification of the different types of risks that an insurance company faces, right? So capital modeling, if you think about it, is effectively how do you quantify the risks that an insurance company faces, and what is the capital that I need to set aside if I want to do business with all the risks that I've identified. So there are a set of risks that are standardized, which you will study about, and capital modeling and slash all these risk frameworks that you study is a gateway to subject SP9, which is enterprise risk modeling, which if you do a SP9, and then I think there is if my memory serves right, there's a seminar that you have to attend that gets your SERA qualification. So this capital modeling journey is effectively your gateway to your SERA, which also becomes the gateway to potentially becoming the chief risk officer of a company if you have such ambitions, right? So this is basically the stepping stone of that entire aspect. And the final aspect of subject SP7, which is the most, in my opinion, the most important aspect, if you become a general insurance actuary, is insurance accounting. So the question right now is, you have your reserving knowledge, you have your capital modeling knowledge. The question then is, how do you translate your reserving or your reserve amounts, your reserve liabilities, and the capital requirements to a income statement and balance sheet? And how do those figures impact your income statement? How do those figures impact your balance sheet? Because at the end of the day, insurance, we might wax lyrical about how we are impacting people's lives, but insurance is a for-profit business. You have to, you have to cater to your shareholders, and your shareholders want to know the impact of their balance sheet and your profit and loss statement. So the final portion of subject SP7 focuses entirely on how a technical balance sheet or a technical income statement, a revenue statement, and a balance sheet gets built, right? Now, the impact here is with respect to the migration of accounting frameworks that the entire world has currently witnessed. So before, it used to be IFRS 4 or Ind AS 104, which was the standard that India was following for all the Indian folks. So we have moved from IFRS 4 worldwide to IFRS 17, and Ind AS 104 has now migrated to Ind AS 117. So you will not be focusing, or you will not be studying about Ind AS 117 or IFRS 17 in this particular section. Most of the concepts that you are studying will be focused more towards your IFRS 4 valuation of the liabilities and accounting frameworks that are there. However, this is always the stepping stone, and with respect to, this is for the life actuaries in the group as well. With respect to Ind AS 117 or IFRS 17, the impact on GI is not very huge, right? It's not completely different. So in life, as far as my understanding, and you'll have to correct me if I'm wrong, Ind AS 117 or IFRS 17 had a huge impact on how you look at numbers. But because of certain things like the premium allocation approach, relaxations that were provided, the impact is not significant or as significant as it is in life for the GI aspect. So your insurance accounting concepts that are there for the older generation that you would have studied, it's still applicable. So please, the life actuaries, please correct me if my understanding here is wrong.
No, I would agree with that, Sunil. That and I saw this from like a large company which had PNC and life business both, and I was part of the transition.
Right.
And I saw that the impact was much higher. The like, and you can
In life.
tell that by the resource involvement, like the number of
Yeah.
resources from life which were pulled in and versus from PNC.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do agree with that.
Perfect. Okay, good. My hypothesis stands proven. So that's good to hear. Yes, please.
Yes, Sunil, I have a question. So since you
Yeah.
mentioned RBC came for QIS one was done in 23, now QIS two just happened by 15th
Yes.
October. So do such concepts like IND AS 117 are being submitted in phases? Do such concepts are tested in SP7 exam, or they
See,
do it in SA3?
they are not tested exactly as is. So
Okay,
you will not get a question saying that this insurer has done RBC. What is the
right.
calculation of capital risk
Hmm,
or what is
hmm.
the premium risk calculation for this? You're not going to get that kind of a question, right?
Okay,
In India in the olden days, you might have.
okay.
So there, if my memory serves right, in SA3, there were like during 2015, 16, 17, when Solvency 2 was like raging,
Hmm,
there was one or two questions on calculation of capital requirements, but it was
okay,
a very like simplistic calculation. It was not very complete,
okay.
right? So and it
Hmm,
was not for like 50 marks or something like that. So that if
okay.
my memory serves right? So what the questions that you will get will be more around the fundamental blocks of how these things are built. So you are
Conceptual
not going
types.
to, I'm sorry,
Conceptual types, you mean?
conceptual types, yes,
Right. Okay.
and more higher order questions. Effectively speaking,
Higher
they would
order.
have given you something and they'll tell you to interpret it.
Hmm,
So effectively, the questions will be around what the board or what the management is going to ask once these numbers are in, which is,
got it.
in my opinion, which is a uh, very pertinent thing because when QIS2 happened, right,
Hmm,
we got pretty much the same questions. So I had to rely on these skills to answer those questions, which my CEO asked me, right? So effectively speaking, think of it as a training for what your CEO is going to ask you once
okay.
you build a capital model. Yes, Anisa.
Yeah, I was just wondering, I can't quite remember, but I'm quite sure like in the April paper, this
Mhm.
SP7 or SP8, they had like calculation question for Solvency 2. So
Okay. Was it this April?
I think so.
Okay.
Or
That's
or in September last year, I'm not quite sure, but definitely
interesting.
recently they had like a Solvency 2 calculation question. So
Interesting. So if you look at the actual calculation of the Solvency 2 capital, I would not call it very complicated, right? The Solvency 2 calculation is not complicated. What is complicated is actually understanding the impact of those calculations and of course the interrelationship between risks, right? So you will look at things like the correlation between classes. It's called risk, the correlation between risks, and that is called risk clash, right? So you will look at all those aspects. So those are the things which are actually the interpretation of those numbers is more important than the actual calculation of those numbers, which is at the end of the day a very standardized equation that is there, right? So if you know the equation, you'll know the capital calculation. The getting the number is so I would have mentioned, I will mention in my future classes, which you will look at, is getting to the number is not hard, right? But understanding and interpreting those numbers, that's where the actuarial judgment, that's where your knowledge, that's where your credentials come into play. If you look at reserving as a example, right? Anybody can build a triangle. Building a triangle and finding the ultimate figure, so it's mathematics, right? Even a 12th standard student, if you teach him, can do it. The question then is, why are you doing it? You are doing it because you are there to apply judgment, to apply reasoning, which not everybody in the world has. And that's exactly what this entire course is built to achieve. So your job is not just to understand the techniques. Your job is to understand the assumptions that go behind what the technique does. Your job is to understand at what point can you break those assumptions? And at what point can you bend those assumptions? And at what point do you justify those assumptions, right? So those are the things that you have to think about. And that's what the examiners, that's what the institute wants you to think about as well. And that's what you should think about. So when you solve a question, it's not just, okay, what is my answer, right? It is, why have I arrived at this answer? So you have to think about that. You have to actively think about that. And that's how you crack the paper as well.
Oh,
Perfect. So I'll just move on. Yeah. So I'll just move on. This is effectively, you can go through this. You can go through this. Right. So from a weightage perspective, right? So the paper will be, 1/5 of the paper goes towards products. So this is the part of the paper which is unique, which is not unique, right? Which is basically a intersection between SP7 and SP8. So if you are doing SP7 and SP8, this portion of the chapters or this portion of the material is common. So your, how your products are structured, what are the benefits, what are the perils, what are the insured clauses, what are the exclusions, what products are selling in the insurance market. So for the life actuaries, it gives you a good understanding of what are the GI products that are there and what are the major lines of business that are there, right? So because in life you have 4 main products, but in GI that's not the case. You have an infinite number of products. So you get an intro to those products. These are not in any way or shape or form the final set of products that are there, because products in GI are like very rapidly changing, right? So you start looking at, basically, I would call this set of products that are there in the material outdated. But it gives you a good introduction and it gives you a good idea about how GI products are not only structured, but how those products are kind of, evolve across time, right? When you look at what the material has versus what the market has, you'll find a huge difference. So that's something that is actually a very good exercise for people to do, which is find out what is the material saying and then find out what the market is actually doing, and you'll find a huge amount of difference. So there'll always be a lot of deviation between theory and practice, and you have to quickly identify that, and understanding where those deviations are gives you the ability to score more marks, right? So if you're able to find out those differences, and if you point those differences out in the exam, that gives you, or that fetches you more marks, and that fetches you. So that is where exam technique shines. So that is a good approach that you should be able to take. Okay. Then you have about 15% with respect to risk, uncertainty, and regulations. This is a bog standard set of questions that you get with respect to risk, uncertainty, and regulations. It's a slightly boring area of general insurance, which you have to study. There is no other way around it, unfortunately. But we try to make it as interactive as possible, if I may say so. And then you have 30% of the paper, which is a big chunk, which goes into reserving. So questions would be around calculation of ultimates and understanding or interpreting ultimates that are there. So questions range from easy to kind of difficult, right? So there's a fairly high standard deviations in how those questions are ranged. And then you have about 18 to 20% of the paper which goes into capital modeling. And in my, at least Anisa has just said it now, but at least when I was studying, we would never have to, I had never faced a question where I was meant to calculate the capital requirements. It was more around interpreting capital requirements, right? So that was at least my experience. And of course, maybe the experience has changed now. Yes, Anisa.
Was it calculating capital? No, I suppose it is, but for solvency too, basically.
Your voice is breaking.
Oh, sorry. I was saying like it was for calculating solvency too.
Okay,
but
that's a
yes,
capital
it is
model.
capital. Sorry?
No, Solvency 2 is a capital model. So
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
calculation. Yeah. But I'm assuming that it's only a part of the questions. It's not the entire question.
I don't quite remember, but
I'll check it out. I'll check it out and I'll put it on the group. I think that will be helpful.
yeah.
Cool. Okay. So how is the exam split? So the assessment effectively is split between knowledge level questions, application questions, and higher order questions, right? So knowledge level questions are basically questions which require you to answer directly from the material. So the material says 25% of the exam is going to be knowledge level questions. So this requires you to understand or remember what the core reading is, and well, I would not call it regurgitate, but at least explain or reiterate what the material has said with respect to that core reading directly, without any understanding or without any, I mean, with understanding, of course, but without any, what do you call it, without any frills directly onto the paper, right? So this is a knowledge-based question. Then you have application-based questions, which form the bulk of your paper. And application-based questions, in my opinion, are first derivative questions, right? So these are first derivative from knowledge. So you have some knowledge, right? You derive from that knowledge what is it could be a case, it could be a specific use case of that particular knowledge. It could be something that is like if you think of knowledge as the street, this could be like a small side road that comes into it. It could be a branch, right? So it's effectively a derivative of something in the core material that you have studied, which you have to apply and you have to answer. So bulk of the paper, 50% of the paper is going to be these kind of questions. And this is where your question paper is different from your basic core level papers that you have studied, right? Where, you would not have gotten these kind of questions. And of course, the remaining is higher order skills. And this is more like a second derivative of knowledge, right? Where this is like a derivative of your application, where you have to not only think of, you have to not only think of a specific use case, you have to go a little deeper. You have to form your own conjectures. You have to form your own hypothesis, and you have to form your own, what do you call it? You have to provide your own insights, which is not, specifically required in an application-based question, right? So higher order skills basically think of yourself as think of it as training to become like the qualified actuary or the chief actuary of the company, right? So you have to put yourself in the shoes of the chief actuary of your company, and you have to think, okay, if this kind of a scenario came to me, and if let's say an analyst came to me and gave this scenario, how do I answer this question, right? Yes, Anisa.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, since I'll be taking SA3 in April and not SP7 and SP8, but I still need the knowledge for it. So would those questions then be more, more useful for SA3?
I could not hear the full point. You said you were taking SP7 and SP8 together.
Yeah, I am studying it, but I'm going to take SA3 in April, not
Yeah.
SP7 and SP8. So then would those questions be
Yeah.
more conducive to?
See, SP7, SP8, and SA3 are basically joined at the hip, right? So SA3, for example, does not have any, there is like a very small book which they provide, which is meant to be the core reading. But SA3 does not have any specified question bank or question set that they ask. So SA3 questions can come from SP7, SP8, and CP1. And the majority of questions till date have been focused on SP7 and CP1. Right. So your questions are more around the GI aspect of CP1, which includes risk, which includes all your risk models, actuarial models, and things like that. And questions on SP7, right, which is capital modeling, accounting, insurance accounting, and reserving, and maybe asset liability, ALM, right? So those are the major aspects from which they cover SA3. There have been some questions from SP8 as well, but SP8 has been few and far between, in my opinion, and that does not seem like it's changing, right? So you have to understand that any SA level paper, the application level paper, right, that you're doing, you have to look at, or you will get topics which GI actuaries currently are losing sleep on. And if the current area of sleep that people are losing on is in pricing, you can expect a question on pricing. If it's on reserving or capital modeling, then you can expect to see reserving or capital modeling. So when I was studying for my SA3 exam, most of the questions were around climate change, right? Because at that point in 23, 24, I think even now, there was a huge debate on how insurance is going to get impacted due to climate change. Then there was a question on IFRS 17, because a lot of the people were, a majority of the geographies were still in the transition mode. And there were questions on risk-based capital, because in India, people were going towards risk-based capital. Then in India, there was a question on portfolio monitoring, because in India, the markets have been worsening for the biggest general insurance line, which is motor OD, right? So your motor OD loss ratios have been worsening. So there was a question on how do you monitor portfolio. So effectively speaking, questions that you get are effectively questions which people are losing their sleep on in that particular market, right? So you can expect those questions, but in my opinion, it is best not to lose sleep over what questions you're going to get. Your core reading knowledge plus your exam technique should be able to handle any type of question that you will get, because at the end of the day, whether it is a knowledge based question, or whether it is a application question, or whether it's a higher order skills question, your entire job will be to tie this question back to your core reading and core knowledge, right? So everything comes from your knowledge, and the answers that you give is either a first derivative or a second derivative of that. So as long as your base is clear, as long as your exam technique is good, you can get any type of question and you'll be able to solve it.
Thank you.
Cool. All right. Okay, so there is a small change in the course structure, primarily because of my personal my personal commitments, right? So effectively speaking, uh, uh, we have made this into more like a self-study kind of this thing, where all the videos are already available of all your historical classes, because most of the, if you ask me, most of the questions that, like 80 to 90% of the questions that I have seen across years from students have already kind of sort of been answered in the classes, right? So they're fairly self-explanatory. However, what we have done is that you have access to your classes, so it becomes a very self-paced kind of environment. And I have personally not given any goals, or I've not given any deadlines, because I know that when it comes to actuarial science, everybody's journey is very, very different. Everybody has different personal pressures. Everybody has different professional pressures. So it might not be feasible to create a one size fits all goal, right? So effectively, the best approach here is to create a self-study program, and I'll be available with as many touch points as possible, where I can create, I might not be doing it on a weekly basis, but maybe on a bi-weekly basis, where I'll create like a 45-minute slot where we can have a discussion on any topic and every topic that you want questions, further questions or further answers on, right? So if, for example, if you feel that in reserving you want more practice in one particular area, I'll be able to tailor a specific class for anyone who's interested, to kind of create that particular need that is there, right? So my recommendation is uh, uh, go through the classes, the online classes that are available at your pace. And at any point in time, if you have any questions that need answers, you can put it on the WhatsApp group, and it kind of helps because it becomes a larger discussion for the group as well. So for example, one person might be facing the same problem which you are currently facing, and it becomes a discussion, and potentially that discussion can turn into a class if enough people find it interesting, right? So basically it becomes like a very collaborative way of learning, and I will always be available to kind of answer any question. If you are facing any problem with any question, I'll always be there. There will be a small lead time, primarily could be because of time zone restrictions. It could be because of maybe I could be traveling in a particular week, right? So I'll ensure that I keep it my turnaround time, I'll keep it as low as possible. And if I have any problems, I will definitely call it out at that point in time, right? So that is one major this thing over there. And of course, during the course, there will be a focus on exam technique along with the theory that we study. And I think the institute will also share the assessments and quizzes that they take. And I usually what I do is I generally have a larger turnaround time for assessments because I give more detailed comments. I'll try to kind of maybe make it a little faster. So usually my comments are extremely detailed, where I go at a question answer level. I kind of give you feedback, but the problem is that it takes a lot of time for me. So, so usually that creates that creates a lot of that creates a lot of to and fro. So what I'll do is I'll try to give you like overall feedback initially, and then we'll try to make it as fast as possible from my side. Questions?
I think we're good.
I'm sorry.
I'm good. No questions. That's it.
Okay, perfect. All right. Yeah. So there are 27 chapters. It's a slightly larger set of what do you call it? It's a slightly larger, a heavier load that is there, and it's split into 6 parts. So your first part is basically your general insurance products and your environment, your Lloyd's market, how it works, etc., etc. Then your second part is risk and data and then actuarial investigations. So your first and second part is basically common between SP7 and SP8. And then you have your reserving methods, then you have your capital modeling, and then you have accounts, right? Reinsurance reserving is a very small portion of reserving. So it's not considered a major aspect because the techniques are the same. It's just how you deal with inwards and outwards that's different. So for each portion, at almost all the classes, I call out which chapters we're taking, which portions we're taking. So some of them are amalgamated into one class. So, the ones which are important, I give separate classes. The ones which I feel can be merged into one class gets merged into one class. So we call it out saying these are the chapters that are there for each class. Okay. And I think that's about it. Yes, a little bit about myself. So I have about 15 years of experience in general insurance, data analytics. I started my career with Mu Sigma, which was a pure play data analytics firm, then moved to the GI space. I I will currently work for a joint venture partner called Chola MS. MS is Mitsui Sumitomo Group. I handle their pricing and reserving functions. I work under the current appointed actuary of the company, although I am currently transitioning to a new role with a greenfield general insurance company in India. So this slide is subject to change now. And I have a fellowship with both the IFoA and the IAI, and with respect to the IA, I was the topper for SP7 and SP8 in September 2021 and April 2021. So I've also been an Arsenal supporter for what it's worth since 2002, and I'm really hoping we win the Premier League this season. So, chalo. Any questions? I think we have about 4 minutes. Any questions? We can have a small discussion and then we can close the class.
Hi, Sunil. I have one quick question.
Yes.
Is the exam of like I'm not in touch with the exams recently, but are they
Yeah.
online or are they offline?
I think they're
Or
offline. I think they're
they're
offline.
offline?
Yeah, I think they're
Okay.
offline.
So the material that you covered, does that have any difference if it's online versus if it's offline? Like I
No,
think for
it
where
doesn't.
I am based, it's online.
Yeah,
So
yeah, it doesn't. It doesn't have.
okay, okay,
It's agnostic with respect to how the question is offline or online, right? So the only difference being because I think even if it's offline, you end up going there and typing it. So there's no handwritten answers anymore.
okay,
So
okay.
even if it's offline, it doesn't mean that it's completely offline. It's not pen and paper. So it's you go to an institute and then you basically type there.
Okay.
So if it's agnostic. Any other questions, guys?
You also said Greenfield. Is that an insurance company? Just
No,
curious.
a greenfield means a new insurance company.
New insurance. Okay, got
Yeah.
it.
So greenfield, brownfield, and I don't know what the other one is. So brownfield means there's already an existing thing, existing structure. Greenfield means new.
Yeah, sounds great.
Fingers crossed. Any questions, guys?
Yeah, I think I'm good.
Perfect. All
Yeah.
right then. Looking forward. Please feel free to message and let me know if you have any questions, whatever it is, right? Any topic, happy to discuss, and I'll be
Just
yes.
one thing, do we have some kind of targets which we keep in our mind, like for 1 week
See,
or 2 weeks we have to get this
I
done or that done?
generally see. I that's the thing, right? I don't usually set targets because the way I see it, it's everybody's journey is very, very different, right? So if I tell you these you need to complete, and then you might have professional pressures, right? So for example,
Yeah,
January might be quarter closing for you. If I tell you January you have to do this, and then you are closing the quarter in January, your
understood.
hair is on fire in a different place.
Mhm.
You might
Yeah,
not want,
but
you might
in
not
case,
want, you might not like the,
yeah,
right? So you
yeah,
might be in a reserving function, and January might be like a quarter closing thing for you, and
right.
somebody else might be in a pricing function, and June might be like a hectic thing for them, right? December might be hectic for them because they're changing prices in June and December. So, or somebody might be in RA, and July might be hell. At least can we have targets? 1 minute.
Yeah,
So there is no fire in the yeah, see. So I'll also be brutally honest, right? You guys are doing a specialist level paper with the Actuarial Institute, right? This is you, this is a test of your professionalism as well, right? So if you are not able to be professional about targets, then you will struggle being actuaries. Because as an appointed actuary, you have to meet multiple different targets, right? So this is also a test of your capabilities, right? It's not just a test of your theory, right? So let me be very, very frank about it. It's not just a test about whether you are going to be theoretical enough to become a actuary, which then becomes qualified, which then becomes an appointed actuary, right? So that's not the test over here. The test is in a real life setting, will you be able to handle the pressure of being an appointed actuary? That's what you need to come up with, right? And for that, for you to have that personal growth, it is best that you do it yourself.
yeah, I was just wondering, from the perspective, there might be assessment from the institute on time to time basis
So the
on
institute gives
particular
you, yeah, the
chapters or
institute
something.
gives you the deadlines for each phase, right? So you have
Right.
those overall broad deadlines. So those the
Mm,
institute gives. But in my
mm.
opinion, you have to figure this out yourself because this,
Yeah.
trust me on this because I have done this myself, right?
Hmm.
I'm talking to I am talking to you from personal experience, right? That qualification, that when I say qualification, I'm not talking about the FIA qualification. I'm talking about this the time frame qualification that you are making, the way that you plan, the way that you hit your targets. This
Right.
has huge downstream impacts, right? Downstream, when you become a qualified fellow, it has downstream impacts. And if somebody is spoon feeding it for you today, then you will struggle at a later point in time. So it is better that you struggle today than you don't struggle tomorrow. That is the way I see it.
Got it.
Cool. All right then. Chalo. Thank you guys. Keep in
Okay.
touch, and please do feel free to ping me.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Sunil.
Bye.
Bye bye.